Hello, hello. Gareth from Health Counselling and Disability Services here, and I'm here to make a quick introductory video for the Good Vibes experiment, which is a mental health campaign, a mental health focused campaign that's launching at Flinders University this week. So today's the 16th of March 2021. The campaign launched yesterday, and we've got our big kind of formal launch tomorrow, Wednesday the 17th, on campus. But what I wanted to do in this video is give you just a bit of a background to the campaign itself, kind of its origins, and give you a little bit of a look at some of the materials that have been produced, and then tell you where to go if you want to interact with the campaign in some way, shape or form. Before I kick off, I just want to do a few shout outs. So Steph and Jess and Chris, Mango Chutney, Jody Norell, Claire, the Student Advisory Group, Fuser, Oasis, Health Counselling and Disability, and essentially anyone else who has helped put this Good Vibes experiment campaign together. It's been a really rapid but very enjoyable process, and thank you to all who have been involved. So the history is that back in 2020, we were given some student services and amenities fee money to build a mental health campaign, and the idea was to develop it in collaboration with students and really focus on kind of 5 main pillars. So educating students on how to look after their mental health, raise their awareness of support services, raise their awareness and understanding of mental health issues, reduce the stigma of talking about mental health, and encourage help-seeking behaviour. Now, as you know, 2020 took a bit of an interesting turn, and we weren't really able to kick off with the campaign and get started on it until around mid-year or 3/4 of the way through the year. So a campaign that was intended to be launched in 2020 is now being launched in 2021. But we got started at the middle of last year, and the first thing we did was to speak to a student advisory group. So these were wellbeing ambassadors that were pulled together from multiple sources, Oasis and Fuser. These were students who had a strong interest in looking after the health and welfare of their fellow students. And we asked them a number of questions in a series of kind of focus groups and interviews. So what do we think they understand by the term mental health? How would they how would they support someone who is struggling with mental ill health? What kinds of things do we need to do as individuals to look after our mental health? What do we need to do as a community? And what would they like to see in a mental health focused campaign? And there was a lot that emerged from those discussions, and I'm probably doing it ill justice in a single slide, but there was kind of some core themes that emerged. So one was that students already had a very rich understanding of wellbeing strategies. They already had a strong understanding of what self-care in the mental health domain looked like. And what they wanted to do was be able to educate individuals more broadly on that self-care. But not just self-care, but also create a culture or a community that values mental health. So it's not just speaking to individuals and encourage them to make investments in their own mental health, but that it was speaking to the community as a whole, the Flinders community as a whole. The third thing they wanted to strike a balance between a campaign that was fun and playful and engaging, but also not minimising a serious topic or alienating those who are struggling with mental ill health. Fourth, they wanted to acknowledge that mental health isn't just the management of unpleasant or difficult emotions, but the mental health includes bringing forth and activating and encouraging people to create in their lives positive emotions. And that provides a kind of a balance against the kind of natural challenges and natural ebbs and flows of one's mood. Fifth, they kind of wanted an experimental or laboratory theme. The term kind of carnival or Willy Wonka popped up a number of times. That was to try and capture this playful element. And finally, they wanted it to be hands-on and tactile and interactable, if that's a word. So rather than just a campaign that's necessarily going out on social media, that it was a campaign that had tangible objects, it had merchandise, it had things people could hold, they could interact with. We had to do the development of the campaign quite quickly. And as you can imagine, with a mental health campaign, you want the evidence base upon which it's built to be pretty robust. So we drew on a couple of kind of key resources to sort of fast track that process of having a sound theoretical model on which to base it. So the first is the Greater Good Science Center out of Berkeley in the US. They've spent the last few years creating quite an impressive kind of education empire with regards to wellness, well-being, mental health. And their Greater Good in Action website specifically is very much focused on what kinds of things can people do to bring positive emotion into their lives. The second big influence was a local crew, so the Sam Marie Wellbeing and Resilience Centre. They have a program called the Be Well Plan, kind of their flagship wellbeing program. We've delivered that to students in the past couple of years with very good reception. And that program has at its core the idea that you can experiment with and try out different evidence-based wellbeing activities, and that as you find the ones that work for you, you kind of look to embed them into your everyday life. And from these kind of two sources, we built this basic foundation upon which much of the campaign revolves. And that's the idea that there are 20 wellbeing tactics. So a wellbeing tactic is an activity, either a psychological activity or a behavioral activity that we know has some evidence for bringing positive emotion into someone's life or helping to ameliorate negative or unpleasant emotion. Or that helps with kind of general psychological growth. And you can see in the list there are some familiar faces, things like meditation and mindfulness, gratitude, kindness, and stuff around how we think. But making it into the list also are some ones that perhaps don't get as much airtime but are equally important and good options for people who are trying to build their mental health. Things that focus around productivity, for example, deliberate practice, learning and teaching, and future orientation, so that desire to look forward and create points in the future that we're working towards. And then essentially the whole campaign is kind of built on top of these 20 wellbeing tactics. So to give you a sense of how that actually works, so what the goal is on the left we have this wellbeing tactic, so this activity or sets of activities that we think help people build their mental health. And then on the other side we want to get to a campaign exercise, something that we can do as part of the campaign that's fun, that's playful, that's engaging, that gets people involved. So we did kind of a translation process where we pick a wellbeing tactic. For example, actually I've got an example here. We pick a wellbeing tactics like something like self-understanding or meaning purpose. We then look at what would a therapeutic exercise look like in that space. So something like values clarification might be an example. So in a clinical setting or a therapeutic setting, we might sit down with someone, we'd look through lists of values, we'd ask the person what kind of resonates, what kind of describes the kind of person they want to be, the life they want to lead. And on the basis of that, narrow down to like a core set of 4 or 5 values, and then look at how they build those into their lives. Now that's a very clinical and therapeutic exercise, and whilst it's hugely valuable, it's not necessarily easily adapted as part of a campaign. So then what we did is by having mental health professionals and designers and students in the same space, we try and find what a campaign exercise for that might look like. So the example from the campaign is that a values clarification exercise then became a values finder word. So there's an interactive and playful component here to find these values-based words within the puzzle, but then also think about what those words mean to them, and are they words that resonate, and if so, why is that, and can they do something with that beyond just the puzzle itself. And we did multiple of those iterations. So for every single wellbeing tactic, we went through that process of thinking, well, what does it look like at a clinical level? But then how can we translate that into something that would make a good campaign element? And what really helps that process is the fact that you've got designers, mental health professionals, and students all working on that process. So any idea has to go through those kind of three filters, I guess, or those three kind of perspectives to make sure that, from my perspective as a mental health professional, the exercise still retains the essence of the original goal or the original therapeutic element. From a design perspective, it has to be it has to look good, it has to be visually engaging, it has to be well described, succinctly described, and invite the person to interact with it. And then from the student perspective, it has to be something they want to do, that they think, yes, I would actually do that, and I think my colleagues or my peers would want to do that as well. So we did that multiple times, and as a result, built a lot of material. In fact, that process of kind of going from wellbeing tactic through to campaign exercise and then running that through these three filters, developed far more ideas in this campaign than we could possibly have actually put in place. So it's a very powerful process by which to generate content for a campaign. So I just want to give you, ultimately we want you to head out and interact with the campaign itself, and I'll give you the directions to do that at the end, but here's just a kind of some visual elements, so you can get a feel for what the campaign looks like and the kinds of materials it produced. So every wellbeing tactic, every single one of the 20 wellbeing tactics got an illustration and a card associated with it. And you can see the range here. Everyone has their favourites, ones that they are a fan of. I'm a big fan of this brain here. I'm a huge fan of the future orientation one, and a lot of people are a fan of this facing your fears one, the snake wrapped around the blade. So every single one of the tactics got its own visual cue and its visual element. Then that allows us to create posters that easily are extremely visually communicative, work really well in multiple size formats, and can be posted around the university. And they prompt you to think about a particular topic and then give you a simple call to action like a QR code or a web address through which you could then pursue your curiosity in that space. We've produced some merchandise, so we have pins particularly for 3 of the wellbeing tactics, so the compassion, the future orientation, and facing your fears. They'll be floating around the university, the different campuses, at stalls, and wherever you find the team talking about the actual campaign itself. Probably the centerpiece of the campaign is the Good Vibes activity book. So there's this book's like over 100 pages. It's got activities that are built around those 20 wellbeing tactics. We got around 2 activities per tactic, so there's 40 plus activities in this book. The activities are intended to be fun to do, engaging to do, playful in their kind of the way they invite you in, but they are also intended to have an underlying core message that's worth thinking about, that is related to your mental health. So it's a book that we want people to write in, to draw, to scribble. The sections of the book you can actually take out and you can put in different parts of parts of your life. And so we really want people to interact with the book, and in the process interact with these themes and concepts that we think are important for their mental health. There's stuff on campus, so here's an early view of the gratitude wall that's been set up at the hub at Bedford Park. We'll have smaller little installations at some of the other campuses, but this is the biggest of the installations that we have, and I believe there may already be materials and content on that wall now, because students have been around, but essentially this is like a giant big community gratitude exercise. We do have some t-shirts on the way, so we've envisioned, so with the t-shirts we've really focused on the original line drawings, drawing those out in black and white, which I think is really both kind of classy, but also captures the wonderful artwork that the team at Mango Chutney did for us. We've got kind of business cards which we'll have lying around the university that will again sort of alert people to the different types of tactics and then give them the where they can learn more. And similar kind of things, an extension of the business cards, these cards that actually talk about the campaign itself and give the relevant web addresses. So in terms of interacting with the campaign, your best place to go is this web address, so the students.flinders.edu.au/good vibes. From there, you can interact with multiple components of the campaign. So you can have a look at a digital version of the activity book. You can order a hard copy. You can find out where the team is going to be at different times over the next few weeks and months. You can sign up to workshops that will be running that help students dig further into each of these different tactic areas. And you can find out which social media channels of the university will be producing and distributing wellbeing tactic information over the coming months. So that's really a launch pad, that website, for interacting with the campaign and letting the others know about it and taking part in it. So thank you for the opportunity to describe the Good Vibes experiment. We really hope that you interact with it. We're really keen to hear your feedback, and you can provide feedback via that website as well. Really keen to hear feedback about what you think, what you like, what you don't like, so that we can kind of continue to improve this campaign and add elements to it as we move through 2021. So thank you very much for your time. Have a good day.